She was 122 years old when she died. Jeanne Calment in a nursing home in Arles, France in 1997. That's not a typo. 122 years. She outlived her own daughter. She outlived her own grandson. She sold her apartment at 90 in exchange for a lifetime pension, betting the buyer would die before her. He died first. She kept collecting payments for another 30 years. Nobody has ever verified a longer human life. And here's the part that should bother you. Nobody knows why she lived that long. And nobody knows why the rest of us don't. You are aging right now, not metaphorically, literally as you watch this. Your cells are losing information. Your DNA is fraying at the edges. And there is not a single doctor on Earth who can stop it. We've cured smallpox. We've mapped the entire human genome. We've put machines on Mars. But aging, the thing that will eventually kill almost every person you've ever loved, remains basically untouched. So what is actually going on inside your body? Why can't we fix this? Let's start with something called telomeres. At the end of every strand of your DNA sits a small protective cap, kind of like the plastic tip at the end of a shoelace. Every time your cells divide, that cap gets a little shorter. In 1961, a biologist named Leonard Hayflick discovered that human cells can only divide a limited number of times before they simply stop. Around 50 times, give or take. This became known as the Hayflick limit. Once a cell hits that wall, it doesn't die exactly. It enters a strange zombie-like state. Scientists call these cells senescent. They're alive, but they've stopped functioning properly. And worse, they start leaking inflammatory signals into the surrounding tissue, damaging the healthy cells around them. Here's the disturbing part. Your body doesn't clear these zombie cells out fast enough. They pile up. By the time you're 70, a huge percentage of the tissue in your body is made of these malfunctioning senescent cells, quietly poisoning everything around them. Some researchers now believe this single mechanism might explain a huge portion of what we simply call getting old. But telomeres aren't the whole story, because in 2009, 3 American scientists, Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak, won the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme called telomerase, one that can actually rebuild those shortened caps. Which raises an obvious question. If your body already has a tool that can reverse this process, why doesn't it just use it constantly and let us live forever? The answer is terrifying, and it's the reason a lot of anti-aging research has stalled for decades. Cancer. Cells that divide endlessly, without any Hayflick limit stopping them, are exactly what a tumor is. Cancer cells have figured out how to switch telomerase permanently on. They ignore the shortening. They ignore the warning signs. They just keep dividing, forever, which is why they're so lethal. Your body's aging process and your body's cancer defense system appear to be the exact same mechanism, just running in opposite directions. Evolution seems to have made a brutal trade-off somewhere in our deep past. Slow, controlled decline, or fast, uncontrolled cancer. It picked decline, which means the very thing that's killing you slowly might also be the thing that's stopping something worse from killing you quickly. This idea has a name: antagonistic pleiotropy, coined by a biologist named George Williams back in 1957. His theory was simple but brutal. Evolution doesn't care if you live to be 90. Evolution only cares if you survive long enough to reproduce and raise your children. A gene that helps you thrive at 25 but quietly destroys you at 70 will still get passed on, because by 70, evolution has already stopped watching. You're off the clock. Nature already got what it wanted from you. There's a species that seems to have broken this rule entirely: the naked mole rat. They're blind, hairless, and honestly kind of hideous. But naked mole rats can live past 30 years, which for a rodent their size should be biologically impossible. Mice, similar in size, live maybe 2 or 3 years. Naked mole rats almost never get cancer. Their cells don't seem to follow the Hayflick limit the way ours do. Researchers at the University of Rochester, led by Vera Gorbunova, have spent years trying to figure out what's different about them. They found that naked mole rat cells produce an unusually thick, gooey version of a molecule called hyaluronan, which appears to physically prevent tumors from forming in the first place. It's like their cells found a loophole evolution never gave us, a way to divide safely without triggering cancer, and without shutting down early either, which raises an uncomfortable thought. If a blind underground rat can dodge this trade-off, why can't we? Some scientists think we might actually be closer to an answer than most people realize. In 2016, a researcher named David Sinclair at Harvard published research on a molecule called NAD+, which naturally declines as you age. Boost NAD+ levels in old mice, and their muscles, their metabolism, even their mitochondria, started behaving like the mice were young again. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough to make labs around the world take notice. Then in 2020, a study out of Sinclair's lab did something even stranger. Using a set of genes called Yamanaka factors, originally discovered by Shinya Yamanaka in 2006, researchers partially reprogrammed the eyes of blind, aged mice. The damaged optic nerve cells in these mice were essentially told to forget how old they were, and they regrew. The mice regained partial vision. Not through surgery, not through a drug that fixed the eye directly, through a signal that reset the cellular clock backward. This is not science fiction anymore. This is published, peer-reviewed research happening right now in labs in Boston, in California, in labs you've never heard of, all chasing the same terrifying, beautiful question. What if aging isn't fixed? What if it's just a program running in every one of your cells? And programs, by definition, can be rewritten. But before you get too excited, here's the catch nobody likes to mention. Every single one of these breakthroughs works in mice. Mice are not you. Human trials for most of this technology are years, maybe decades away, and the ones that do exist so far have shown mixed, sometimes worrying results. Reprogramming cells too aggressively risks triggering the exact same uncontrolled growth we were trying to avoid in the first place. Cancer, again, waiting at the edge of every solution. So here's where we actually stand. We understand pieces of the puzzle: telomeres, senescent cells, NAD+ decline, cellular reprogramming. But we still don't have the full picture, and we definitely don't have a cure. What we have is a growing suspicion, shared by a small but serious group of scientists, that aging might not be some unstoppable law of physics. It might just be biology's oldest, most stubborn design flaw, one that evolution never had a reason to fix, because evolution was never trying to keep you alive past the point of usefulness. Jeanne Calment didn't have access to any of this science. No telomerase therapy, no Yamanaka factors. She smoked until she was 117 and ate 2 pounds of chocolate a week. Nobody fully knows why her body held on so much longer than everyone else's. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was something buried in her genes that scientists still haven't identified. Maybe there's a version of the naked mole rat's trick hiding somewhere inside all of us, waiting to be found. Either way, somewhere in a lab right now, someone is staring at a mouse that's acting 5 years younger than it should be, and wondering if they just found the first thread of an answer that every single human being who has ever lived has been desperate to know.